I am feeling so rested. Do I look rested? I just got back from a wonderful cruise. So many of you know one of my favorite pastors is Alistair Begg. We got into a little controversy here recently. Just depends on how you look at it. I don't even want to talk about that. Just to let you know, I'm totally behind him, on his side, 100%. Nevertheless, booked a cruise to go with him through New England and Canada some way time back. I didn't look at my itinerary until like 2 weeks before I left, only to find out that we were not going to be sitting at his feet 24/7, which is what I thought. But there were lots of free time. We did have a service every morning for about 90 minutes. Brenton, what's Brenton's last name? Brenton, can't think of his last name. He and his band, they're from South Africa and Australia that do a lot of work here in the United States with Tasha Cobbs and some other folks. Wonderful singers. Funny story, first night on the ship, I kind of got twisted. I heard some music and I just started following the music. I wasn't really paying attention to the sign outside of the music hall. And I went in and they were there rehearsing. And I was like, wow. And it was just like right off the bat, the music was so wonderful. And I was just like grooving. and I had like a free concert for 20 minutes all by myself in this big auditorium. And I was thinking they were probably saying, this woman needs to get out of here. And then when I actually met them later in the week to buy one of their CDs, they were like, oh, we remember you the first night. You was like really into it. That was really pumping us up and making us feel good. So the whole time I'm thinking, they're thinking she should be out of here. They're thinking, wow, we got us an audience. She into us, we into her. It was so cool. The music was outstanding every day. The preaching was really, really good, as usual. But here's the thing. So this is one of your luxury liners. A little premiere, and I didn't know any of this until later. I sent a couple of friends some pictures. They were like, oh, yo, this is a serious cruise down. I have to post some pictures. I took hundreds of pictures. Beautiful, beautiful churches throughout New England, as you know. Get a little closer up in Maine area. That's deep religion. Beautiful churches all throughout Canada and Quebec. So just really had a wonderful time. I was getting ready to say something. I don't remember where my train of thought went. But yeah, so here it was. So this particular cruise ship only held a capacity 17 to 1900. 1700 to 1900, including the crew members. And I would venture to say had to be at least 300 workers on there. And the service was impeccable. The food, so good, you know. And as everybody knows who loves to go on cruises, what I get from people who love to go on cruises is the amount of food that's available to you. And they did have all of that in the market area. And then we ate in the dining hall, you know, with people that you kind of met through the week. We had assigned tables. So that was really nice. In the dining hall, last night, when they brought the chef out, I mean, people were just like on their heads, waving their napkins and stuff. And so food was just so impressive. Because you know me, if I eat things that aren't really good for me, my fingers will swell up the next day. None of that, even in the market area where you just go and eat all day long. So much fresh fruit, had big giant fresh salads every day, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of that, and you know, stuff was cool. I'm actually going to make something to remind me of that. So that was all good, but out of the people that were on the ship, there were only about 5 black people on the entire cruise. I was a little surprised by that. I figured it would be very, very, very diverse, but I literally count them on one hand. But I saw 5 black people. One that I met was a mother and a daughter out of New York. There was a blind black man that was actually from the church that Pastor Begg preaches at, which is in Cleveland, Ohio, which has a pretty 60-70% black population. And then there were 2 other blacks who had interracial marriages. So I just thought that was really like, wow, where are my folks? Because he's a really sound biblical preacher. So I know we're into, the church and sound doctrine. I definitely know that we're into cruises. Then, out of the people that were there in our group, they said that our group, the Inspiration group, was probably a little more than a third of the population of the ship. And out of that third, out of actually the entire ship, I would venture to say 65% or better was 65 to 85 years old. I have met so many people that were 80 to 85, and then the rest of them just, but they had so much pep in their step. And I think it's a testimony to living right. I have to admit, sometimes I can get a little frustrated around in life, and that's obviously where I am, and where I live, and the people I run into, and that kind of stuff. Because you sometimes wonder. I say a lot of times, I don't think we believe in what we're selling in terms of believers and Christians. And these people on this boat, it was so, even the people that were not, because I met a lot of people that weren't a part of our particular group, on the excursions and stuff. And even those people, just, it's like they signed up. It's like everybody on this boat signed up when they got on the boat to try to go for the, I'm going to be the nicest person on the boat award. I mean, that's just how wonderful it was. The fellowship was just amazing. Just really could have stayed there for months on that ship with these people. Truly, you can go into churches, a lot of times, and you just don't feel like you're on the same page with everybody. We were all on the page of love Christ. Christ is in charge. Everything I've been teaching here in Mark was just what the people believe. I don't think I've been around that many people who watch less TV than I watch. That's pretty amazing. And during the whole 10 days that we're gone, not once did the whole political election and what's coming down the pike come up. And that's not because actually someone in the Q&A asked a question, about the race. And the comment was like, hey, everybody thinks we need another party. But you do the responsible thing, you go out and vote. But you have the center of Christ and his teachings in your mind in terms of who you decide to vote for. But it never came up, and not because people don't care about it, I think, like I am, you're not interested or whatever. The thing is that ultimately, you just know that, like anything else in life, is just that. Yes, we're responsible, we do the responsible thing, but at the end of the day, we know who we are and whose we are. And we continue to do what we're supposed to do, and all of the other stuff takes care of itself. Honestly, it just depends on how you're looking at this glass. Halfway full, halfway empty, and who's in charge of holding the glass and filling the glass. So that was very refreshing. The conversations were just, you can talk to people and tell how I can come to that deduction, because everything in their life is just that. You wake up every morning, you try to be the nicest person you can, you try to help other people. You could see it was so evident in terms of people's kindness and generosity, in terms of helping people do things, You had a couple of people that just, I guess, wanted to meet him and be on this cruise. I had a lot of comments where people say they've been trying to get to a point where they can get to his church or get to him, and they felt like they were running out of town. I don't know if you realize that he actually announced that he's retiring. He's stepping down in September. And I've been trying to get to his church, so I'm going to go. I made up my mind I'm going to go for the Christmas concert that they do this year. And so some people came, and you did have a handful of people out of this very senior group that may have had a walking cane, or just, had a little bit of immobility to them. And just how people were helping them, even though they kept saying they were good, but it was just the kindness, just, feeling like close as you'll get to that side on this side. So that was really good, and it made you be encouraged and rejuvenated, and we're all in this thing, and there are plenty of soldiers on the field. The other thing that I got just really rejuvenated about, so you're having conversations. It's funny that we're just talking about things in general, And, you know, I think there are like 10 people in 10 different conversations like, oh, you should write a book. And I was like, well, I have written some books. Oh, really? Oh, you're so humble you didn't even talk about it or whatever, because, you know, you see the same people every day. And so when I started talking, I didn't talk about the fitness books at first. Started talking, you know, just because of everything else that was going on. And so I was reminded of how I just love to tell the story of how my book, Do You Know 316, came to be. And I just felt all of that excitement as I was telling people about the book all over again. It just reminded me of how I just, that was such a great time when I was doing that. The revelation that the Holy Spirit guided me through. I don't have my bio in that book, because even today, because as soon as I got back here, I went and grabbed the book and opened it and read it all over again. And whenever I read it, I'm just like, there's no way that you wrote this, because it's truly a work of the Holy Spirit. And then just how the development of the book came into my mind, just telling people, you know, their eyes were all like mine, all big, and they were just paying attention and hanging on to every syllable. And I was just like a child. I mean, really just like all excited all over again. Which, you know, I had always said once I got done with a lot of this popcorn stuff and all this other stuff that's happening, that I was just going to do a solid book tour, and, you know, on all the books, but definitely to bring the Do You Know 316 book back to the forefront. So I've decided I'm not going to put that on hold. I'm going to move forward with that immediately. I think I'm going to make it a soft hard cover or hardcover. And then, of course, I'll change a couple of things probably in the introduction and in the end, just because of some stuff that's happened subsequently. So anyway, I had a wonderful, wonderful time. Just such a good thing. I actually went online last night to book another one. I'm going to go to the Mediterranean. Just haven't decided with which pastor. It'll probably be David Jeremiah or the other one, the one for PowerPoint. So anyway, that's that. Then I want to talk to you just a quick second before we get started on following your spirit. Because I remember that book was so spirit-led. And this morning I woke up, I was like, what's up with this rain? Because I think I came back, I don't know if I came back Monday night, or was it Sunday night? One of those, but it's been cloudy and rainy every day. So I woke up and finally the sun is coming out a little bit, and I look back in the backyard, and I'm like, wow, my coleus and the flowers that I planted this summer are still thriving because all my trees are gone. And now that the two big ones just recently fell, they're going to get so much more sun that they'll probably be hanging out until November. Usually they kind of scatter about this time. So I was looking out there, and just as I was looking at the flowers, for some reason, a friend of mine just, bam, she was just placed into my spirit, just like a bullet coming into me or something. I was like, wow. And I had just gotten out of the shower, was about to get dressed, and I said, call her. You know, I thought about maybe I'll call her later once I get settled, after I drink me some juice or something. And something was telling me I've got extended tax day. This is in 2 weeks. I got to finish up my taxes and get them to my accountant. And so that, and then just being gone for 10 days, a couple of things that need to be done. And so, stronger than that, my spirit was just like, call her now. So I called her, and she didn't answer. And so I was leaving her a message saying, I was just calling to check on you. And as I was leaving the message, she called. So I clicked over to her, and I was like, hey, how you doing? I was looking out the window, and it just dropped into my spirit. So she's a little quiet, and I was like, oh, you know, what's going on? And she told me that she was up all night, really had never been that close to thinking about committing suicide. And she said she just had it. Then, of course, she went on and on about what was going on, what's been going on. I think I may have spoken with her a couple of months ago, maybe a couple of months. Things were a little dicey then. Talked to her, kind of gave a little pep talk or whatever. And so I'm just like, you know, whenever something falls in, you know, people say, God's not talking to me. But when those things happen, you really have to follow your spirit. Especially, I had walked 4 miles this morning. I came back in, got on a stationary bike, was reading this spiritual book that I ordered from the event, and it was here when I got home. Wanted to start reading it right away. So I was totally in that zone, that meditative, quiet, let me listen to God, be still for a moment, everything else will take care of itself. I'll get to the taxes when I get to them. So I was in that moment anyway. And so when that happens, and when we do these things and we orchestrate our lives such that we have that quiet time with God every day, then you're in tune. Your steps and your walks are ordered. And these things happen and you pay attention to them, and So gave her a little talk, and then after I talked to her, she was feeling a whole lot better. I gave her a couple of things to read. She was saying she tossed and turned all night. I was like, when you tossing and turning like that, get up and just read your Bible. It'll put you to sleep if nothing else, if you just keep reading, and then just, fall on your knees and just be quiet. You don't have to say anything. Just be quiet and listen. And you'll feel a peace that surpasses the understanding of the situation. And you just, and then I just felt like I had to just keep talking until I had her totally in a different place. Got her there, and I got off the phone, and I shared her contact with 5 of my good, spiritual, trusting friends. And I called each one of them. Only one answered. But the rest of them, I text them a message, copied the message, and says, this is what's going on. I need you to call her. Just encourage her. Just pray with her. It doesn't have to be but 2 minutes or 1 minute, but just do that. Just so that she knows that she's in people's minds and thoughts. Folks are praying for her. She doesn't feel alone, because she was saying she just felt like she's going to handle all this stuff by herself. And so I got off the phone. Here's the second part. So I got off the phone with the one person had answered. And I was walking down the steps, and I'm thinking to myself, that ship, that cruise, people were right on board. They just so kind and loving. And I was thinking whether or not the person I just talked to, she says, oh, I'm going to call her whatever. I was thinking whether or not she probably was like, with everything else I got to do today. And so then I heard, and then I said in that, she's probably saying, with everything else I have to do today, Dallas has me calling these people. And so that she doesn't even know. That's what I was thinking. And then, as I was walking down the steps, I could hear God say, but she does know her. And just by coincidence, I thought about that, and I said, she sure did, because at my event, she was there. And so, that's probably too much information now, because y'all be trying to think those that came. So, anyway, yeah. And so we do those things, and, I always tell people that people decide to leave here, how must that be? Because it's usually when you just feel like sometimes you just need to talk to people. And I would always say, if one of my friends did that, I would just feel, that, they feel like they could call me or something, especially so all the time we should check on one another, 1. 2, when the Spirit drops something in your spirit, be obedient immediately. So that's my other sermon for today. And so now we're in Mark 8. Guess what? We're only like 2 more sessions, maybe 3, from chapter 9. We are so getting to the end of this. And I, ladies and gentlemen, am up to chapter 4 with my memorization. That's 125 scriptures that I could talk to you for about 20 minutes. I'll read you from Mark 1:1 right up to Mark 4:1. Bop, bop, bop. Just like that. Without even clenching. And so I'm getting so familiar with the beginnings of the Gospel of Mark. So we are chapter 8, verses 27 through 30. We're going to start. Nope, we're going to do 22 through 27. 30 is next week. 30 is good. That's when Peter confesses that Jesus is Christ. That's next time. I was reading over it earlier. Okay, a blind man is healed at Bethesda. Then he came to Bethesda, and they brought a blind man to him and begged him to touch him. So he took the blind man by the hand and led him out of the town. And when he spit on his eyes and put his hands on him, he asked him if he saw anything. And he looked up and said, I see men like trees walking. Then he put his hands on his eyes again and made him look up, And he asked, and he was restored and saw everything clearly. Then he went to his house and said, neither go into town nor tell anyone in town. Then he sent him away to his house, saying, neither go into the town nor tell anyone in town. Okay, so chapters 1 through 4, which 1 through 3, up to 4 that I've already memorized. Here I know this like the back of my hand. So here you have a story that's almost identical to the man that he healed over in chapter 2. And at the end of chapter 2, it says, however, so Jesus does the same thing. This is the man that had leprosy. And so he healed him, and he told him, after he healed him, he sent him away immediately. And he said to him, see to it that you say this to no one, but go on your way, show yourself to the priest, and offer the things that Moses commanded as a testimony to your healing. However, he went out and began to proclaim it freely, so much so that Jesus could no longer enter the city freely, but had to stay in deserted places, and they came to him from every direction. Yay. So that's like 10 verses. So the story is the same. So you ask the question, why is he telling him to not tell anyone? Because Jesus does not want to be ahead of the time in terms of what's about to happen to him. He would always say when he was casting out demons, be quiet, because they knew him. The demons knew that he was the Son of God. The demons knew everything, and he would often tell them, be quiet, and do not say this to anyone. So he's still doing the same thing as we're getting ready to lead up to the real drama in this gospel, with them plotting to kill him. And so there's, depending on whose commentaries you're reading, there's a lot of commentaries on this, and I was going to ask you guys to kind of like email me and tell me, where do you get your sources from? Because a lot of times this thing, and what it is that we want to make things complicated, and the gospel is not complicated, and it's for everybody. And so whether you're like way theologically sound or just someone that's coming in the beginning, the gospel is supposed to be for you and your understanding. Make the plain things simple and the simple things plain. And so a lot of people have taken this and made it to be a whole lot more, and it's done in a way that you can make scripture be what you want it to be. And some of the points that they're trying to make are good, but I don't know if they're really taking the context out of context. And so they're saying this whole episode with him taking the man by the hand and leading him means that it's Jesus guiding us and leading us and all this stuff. In this particular case, because of all the books that I used to read on just the character of Jesus, and they go through all the different scriptures, for each characteristic that they've come up with. And one of those characteristics is his level of considerateness. He's always considerate of the individuals that he's dealing with. The woman at the well, the woman that they put in the middle of the circle that they wanted to stone her to death. He's always thinking about where people are, and when we think about the fact that he gave us what is the main command, that command that says, obviously love the Lord your God with all your heart and might, but the second one is like this also, is what he says. And that is the one where we treat others like we want to be treated. And that's putting yourself in the shoes of the other person. A lot of times people think, well, I would want to be, but put yourself in their shoes. If it's somebody that's always cantankerous, always just whatever, you've got to know that they know that. And so it's probably some trauma that they experienced during their childhood that makes them like that. And so putting yourself in their shoes is saying, you know what, I was traumatized when I was a child. I don't want to be like this, but I just can't help myself. And how would you feel? You would want people to kind of try to understand that and deal with you in spite of you. And that is what Jesus always did. And when it came to healing and teaching, he'd always put himself in the pupil's position, in the patient's position. What is a patient feeling? If you've been blind and probably born blind, if somebody's going to come like Jesus can just snap his fingers and make you see again, how are you going to feel when that happens? You'll be traumatized again. All of a sudden, bam, you're living in the darkness. You ever do that? Sometimes I just close my eyes and try to see if I can get around a room or something, just to see what that might feel like, so that I can just, have an idea or be more grateful for the fact that I have sight. But you take that and somebody that hasn't been able to see all of their life, and then all of a sudden, bam, they can see again. Just open your eyes. It's just like we do when we come out of a movie theater, or you wake up and you go into one room, you got to turn the large. One of the places I was in when I was, where was I? In Quebec. They had these little fancy things with all the lights, the showers, everything was on like a switch where you can get a little bit or a little bit more or a little bit of just a little bit of light, but not too much light. And you just I was playing with fixtures and stuff the whole time. I was like, ooh, this is really, and it is so cool, because sometimes you go and it's just like, it's a little bit too much light, and it's just like not a happy medium. It's like when you're trying to find a new church. It's like either it's a mortuary or it's a circus. Where's the happy medium? You get one extreme or the other. And they gave you all of the things in between. And so Jesus is saying this man is going to be shocked, and it's going to be too much for him to handle if I just come, snap my fingers, and make him be able to see again. So let me take, and then what are other people? How is he going to be feeling with all these other people he's never seen before, never knows how to act in any of those kind of environments? They're going to be there, and they're going to be watching, and their eyes are going to be on it. So it's just a lot of other things to take into consideration than his one-on-one contact with the Son of God and the healing process. So he takes him off. He takes him away from the, because half of the people, like I said, everybody that came on this ship was totally into trying to be kind to people, generosity. But we know that when people, the crowds, the multitudes came to see Jesus, half of them believed he was the Son of God. Another half of them was divided down the middle of those that just were curious and those that wanted to see him fail. As in any case. And so, let's put them all out to pass. This is something that he's doing. He's going to take him, put him away from the crowd, in some privacy, let him be able to wrap his head around the fact that something major is about to happen in his life. It's okay, be calm, because the same person that's going to make this major thing happen is the same person that's going to have you during the whole experience of making this major thing happen. Then, he uses a process again. That's all he had to do was make him see. But he uses a process that this man, even though he has not been able to see, had to have some familiarity, because he has ears that he can hear of when people were being healed of various things. So this is the East. In the East, everybody knew what I try to teach people. Saliva is the big deal. You know it, because when you got a real smudge on something and you take some paper and try to clean a spot off the window and the spot doesn't go away, then what do? You spit on it, and bam, all of a sudden, it's like magic. And what else? I tell people the best place for the perfect live enzymes is where? It's in your saliva. This is the reason, people, why it is always recommended that you chew your food 15, 25 times before you swallow each mouthful. Why? Because that allows the food to mix with the gastric juices so that when they do get into your body, it's already what we call pre-digested. And that is from the live enzymatic action found in your saliva. You can't buy any digestive enzyme pills that are going to be stronger than the saliva in your mouth. The problem is that most people don't chew their food. I did see that a lot on this ship. I was like, man, is that little lady going to eat that big old plate and then come back and get another plate? So chewing the food not only helps you not eat as much, because you would simply not have enough time to eat too much when you're chewing 20, 25 times before you swallow. But being able to have that enzymatic action in the chewing of the food, especially when we're talking starches and meats and those things with uric acid, really helps to break that stuff down. And so this was something that people practiced during that time when there was a sickness or an illness or whatever. Sometimes they would use, they call it here spittle, but use the saliva. And so, in some of the commentaries, you hear people say, well, he wanted to moisten the crustacean that was probably on the people's eyes. And blindness was a big thing, and it was so-called the thing of the East because more so than anything else, it's the hygiene. So you don't have clean. I remember when I was in Beijing, China, and so for all of the people that lived in a complex of, say, some 600 people, you only had 2 areas that you could that were sanitized areas where you had running water. So most of everything was done in the Hongbo River, the same river that grows a lot of the fish that's sold here to America from China. People wash their clothes there, were able to get a little bit of water to wash. So so many people over there, their teeth were rotten because they didn't have bathroom facilities as such for a complex that size. You know, so people would go out, everything was done in the river. Everything was done in the same river. You know, that's another sermon. But people were familiar with that. So when you don't have the hygiene of being able to just simply wash your hands, and for the blindness, when the eyes were kept closed like that, then you get the same thing that happens when you eat what? You eat too much salt. Your eyes start to stick together in the morning. I tell people when they got that white crust on their eyelashes, that comes from eating too much salt. And so imagine in those times when you had that, flies and insects would just be like landing on your eyelids with all this incrustation, because it has a little salt in it. And then you have all kinds of problems. And so that's where most of the blindness came from. So Jesus takes him out, and then here's the other piece. If you pay attention to all his other miracles, and his miracles are involving the blind people, the lame people, you know, the sickness, the healing, it's usually like that. Pick up your mat and walk. Pick up your bed and go home. You know, just open your mouth and speak. In this particular case, he puts some saliva on the guy's eyes, and then he asks him, what can you see? And he says, I see like trees, dark, slender things. In this version, I see men like trees, walking. Then he put his hands on his eyes again. What's the operative word there? Again, and made him look up again. Again suggests what? It suggests that this wasn't instantaneous. But it could have been. So that, if anything, is probably a lesson for us. Not a lesson, but just to teach us the fact that this thing from being blind to seeing, I think I wrote that in the commentary there, is that it's not I belong to God now, I've joined the church, life is going to be great. That is why I think a lot of people fall away from the church, because we or somebody has them thinking, okay, you come down that aisle, you leaving all your troubles and your problems. It's the same thing I was ministering to the young lady on the phone this morning. Is that now, and then the closer you get to God, that's when the devil all up in your stuff. If you're just over here playing Christian life and not really focusing on trying to make a difference in other people's lives, Satan ain't got to worry about you. You're going to self-destruct on your own. It's the ones that are out there trying to do the right thing, trying to walk right, that you're just going to have all kinds of, the enemy is going to be all over you. It's real. And so this is what he's saying, that it's a and then you can, and then it's going from not being able to see. That's a gradual process that took place in his healing right here. Just 2 short steps versus 1 step. But in our process, coming to God and learning Jesus and seeing Jesus for the first time, we can see him 100 times and 1,000 times and 1,000,000 times and on and on and on until we leave here. There's always going to be some new revelation. There's always going to be more to see, more to learn of him. That is the process. And as you move along in the process, you're able to have a better sight, a better understanding. But it never reaches that level of perfection until you are in his presence at the end. So that ought to give you encouragement. I told the young lady this morning that when we get to that point where we feel like we've had enough or whatever, that's a point of no hope. And we have to define what hope is. I heard a wonderful piece of it here and a piece of it there over the last few years, and I put it together, and it is hope. Hope is what? Hope is the joyful anticipation of the future today, based on the past and the evidence and facts of the past. And what does that mean exactly? That means exactly that we tend to forget what we've come through. I said to her, I says, think about how you're feeling today. You've probably felt like that before, that I am just not going to make it through today or whatever. And yet, here you are. Some days later, some years later, the further away it was, we may tend to forget what happened. And that's the reason we get up and we spend time with God in the morning, because when we come to his presence, there ought to be an attitude of gratefulness and thanksgiving. Just doing that today, and not only that, getting I out of the way. I've said it often that the gist of most of our problems boils down to our ego and pride. The fact that we think we're supposed to be able to take care of our family members that are sick or whatever, or that we're supposed to do this. We're trying to play God. We're not God. We just do our part. And if you've been on a farm and you know how stupid a sheep is, why is that analogy? Why are we called a sheep? Because we're not supposed to be able to do everything, and we're not supposed to know everything. So we just do our part and depend on him. And an inability to depend on him is a direct correlation with a lack of understanding your role. If you thought that you were responsible for where you are today, what you've achieved today, what you've accomplished, you've done your part. But at the end of the day, the only reason you're not homeless, the only reason that you're not in Florida or North Carolina is by the grace of God. And we start expecting and understanding that it is his grace and his mercy that keeps us from being where we don't want to be. Then we have more of a humble attitude that all the other stuff that I've been given, all the other stuff that I've achieved, all the other stuff I've accomplished has been because of the grace of God only. It had little or nothing to do with me. I'm just this vessel, and it's great when I do what I'm supposed to do. But even then, it's just God, and we appreciate him. And so that's going to make us be grateful. That's going to have a thankful attitude, and it's going to allow us to have more empathy and sympathy for those that don't. You know, so when we wake up in the morning, yes, we're grateful, we're thankful, and in that, it forces us to pray for those that don't have what we have. So as you're contemplating whether or not you want to be here the next day, in that you could have just easily redirected it and says, I am so glad I am waking up in a bed. I can go downstairs and eat some food. When you look at the devastation that's come across North, these folks in the middle of nowhere, the main bridges of egress, and they're down. How are they going to get food? I'm not sure why this hasn't been like a little bit more blown up. This thing here is looking like the Katrina thing all over when you look at the photographs. And that's just very limited because that's all you can, that's as far in as you can get is through a helicopter bird's eye view. But you see towns that are white. I mean, how are these people ever going to, the little gas that they have and that they're getting to should be out by now. And how are you going to get food to a place that is filled with water like that? Are you going to drop ship it, and how exactly? And how are the people that are in the areas going to get to you when that food is able to get there in some kind of way? It's just amazing. To me, it's just like mind-boggling that this is just, you know, that this is not the talk of everything. And so to know that you're not in that situation and you're able to pray for the people that are in that situation should bring you some kind of relief from whatever struggles that you're having for the day. And that always does. And I hate when people say, well, I'm better than somebody else, or I ain't got the problem. We shouldn't have to go that far to compare ourselves to others in order to have just a heart full of gratefulness that I am who I am where I am, I'm not this situation or that situation because of the grace of God. We should be able to recognize that. And then the last piece of that would be to be, there was some conversation about just people that they've wronged and this and that. We can just apologize to people and they can accept it or not, and you move on. Because to linger in that and to keep regurgitating the fact that you've done wrong to some people or, you know, is to crucify Jesus all over again. It's to not believe that he died for your past, present, and future sins. And so just focusing on that. And then when we go and we continue to read the Word of God and study the Word of God, these things are revealed to us in a way of just, you know, because I'm not saying anything she didn't know. You're just reminding people what they know and where maybe the focus should be. And so this is what's happening here. It's a gradual thing. Then he's telling him, go to your house and not tell anybody just yet, because it's not time just yet. And I don't want the focus to be on the miracles per se, that now the blind can see, versus the focus being on repent and believe in the gospel. Okay, I'm done. I know that was a little longer than I had expected, because I'm going to do a quick little dish here. So at the dinner table at night, you know, just, wow, you could have paid $150 for each one of these plates, full 4-course, and just wonderful, wonderful salad done differently every night. Vegan options. I had one night a stuffed green pepper with sprouted lentil beans and some other stuff. And you get stuffed, even when I stuff a pepper with my walnut pate, a lot of times I may or may not eat the pepper. It just depends. But the pepper was just so moist and delicate, it just ate. Never took a plate that had anything left on it from my table. And then every night we had dessert. We had dessert every night. But it was always just some little delicate thing, and you can tell that they allow fruit to be fruit. Everything, you know, because I just loved everything. A lot of times I don't like a lot of desserts from the stores because it's too sweet, and it's just, you don't really taste the key lime. You know, you don't really taste the blueberries. And blueberries are big, you know, and made. In fact, the lady whose great-great-grandfather started Wyman, who does all the frozen berries and things, was on the cruise. She was there by herself. And the first day that I went out on an excursion, there she was, you know, we just connected like two peas in a pod. And so they have 30,000 acres that they grow blueberry orchids on, and all the other berries are imported. But the blueberries that they do, so, you know, in Rockport, Maine, and Nova Scotia, I mean, blueberries were just it. So everything had blueberries in it. And so the desserts a lot of times were blueberries, something, and we ate a lot out of the little, they just brought you a little plate with something on it. It wasn't much. So we ate dessert every night, but it wasn't like, some big giant thing. So what I'm going to do is, and I said, I can do that at home. And so we're going to do the raw version, which was pretty similar to the version there, because again, they just used basically fresh fruit. And just a little bit of something. One of the things that we ate, the little blueberry tart, usually was just fresh blueberries with fresh blueberries, and then a powder topping. And I talked about that when we did our raw peach pie a couple of weeks ago. That you can take just a little bit of grounded sesame seeds. These are sesame seeds that actually have the hulls in them. These are steel cut oats. We have some grounded flax seeds. Again, raw coconut. We have some pecans, walnuts, and almonds. And we have some dates. We have a variety of herbs here. I don't know if you can see. So we have a little bit of sea salt, a little bit of cinnamon, and a little bit of nutmeg. I also have a little bit of turmeric, because turmeric is so good for you. You can mix turmeric with cinnamon and nutmeg, and it's going to blend in nicely for dessert. If anything else, we may or could have used a little fresh vanilla. We have raw honey and Stonewall Kitchen up in Maine. I just had them ship me some stuff, because I knew for a fact that is where the syrup and the maple trees and everything come from. So I got me a little bottle of maple syrup. I got a whole bunch of stuff. I got some fig balsamic dressing, some tiki masala sauce, whole bunch of stuff. It was shit, and it was here waiting for me when I got home. So I'm going to use a little bit of the maple syrup instead of the raw honey. And then I use the essential oils. This is a citrus bliss. So it's got a little bit of lemon, a little bit of tangerine, a little bit of orange. You can use regular orange vanilla flavorings, but if you go with the essential oil blends, that's really got a little bit more to it. And so we can do two things here. We can do a thin layer of crust. And these are just the ones where usually, if you want them to look beautiful, you do that, and then you can flip it. And the thing comes out like that. Or you push it up once it's, you'd have to put it in the freezer for a couple of minutes, let it get stiff. And then you push it up like that, and then you slide it off onto the plate, and then it has a little ridges. Or you can be like us, you just eat it right out of here. And that's what I'm going to do. So we can do one or two with a thin layer. Now the thin layer will simply grind up some nuts and put a couple of figs in them. And we can just do a little thin paste on the bottom. don't have to do that. I'm going to do one of each, a paste crust. And then the topping will be the steel cut oats with the grinded sesame seeds, a little bit of coconut, a little bit of the maple syrup, all blended together, and you just scoop it on the top. This is going to take 10 minutes. So I have here, yes, some blueberries, but I also have some raspberries and some strawberries, just a few raspberries and strawberries. And one of these has a few dates already in it because it was from another filling that I had done recently, and just stuck it in a bag and put it in the freezer. So are there any questions? There shouldn't be any because that was pretty simple. So because the blueberries can have a little stuff on it, you don't necessarily want the blueberries to be in the filling. We're going to do, in the crust, we're going to do that first and then sit it on the side. And then we'll fill these. And then, of course, I will probably have some left. And I will gobble that down. So what am I doing? So what we're going to do is the crust. It's tight. Are we good on time? So do the crust first. So we're going to put, these are jewel dates, my favorite. So they have the little pit in there. Here comes that king in my voice. You guys are probably getting used to hearing this. And I went to the ENT. It took me 2 months to get an appointment. Let me tell you, this buffoonery, she started talking about, I need to take some speech therapy classes. And it just comes like this. So it's obviously, I think it's something when I touch certain things. I don't like air conditioning, so I know the climate temperatures on the ship were perfect. Only once or twice, maybe, I have gone through this whole thing while I was gone. But it's come back. And it's just, I don't know what it is. That's why you go to an ENT specialist to see, maybe she can see. Because I've tried everything on the sun. And it's getting worse. She held my neck here. She says, I need you to take a deep inhale, exhale. And right after the exhale, I need you to count to 10. So I did that. And afterwards, she says, now I'm going to have to stick this little camera, something really thin, like the size of a wire, a cord with a camera on it. You have to numb your nostrils. So I can stick the camera in up your nostrils, and then be able to look down your throat. Now, I know for a fact I have a nodule on my right vocal cord from years ago when I had that cyst on my tonsil throat. She never even mentioned that. She looked at things. She says, oh, everything there looks great. It actually looks really, really good. And no nose, blah, blah, blah. But she said, but what I did notice is when you count it to 10, we're supposed to exhale and then such and such and such. She says, and you're doing it opposite, and people do that, then, whatever. She says, and so when you're speaking incorrectly, when you give your voice muscles a break, then they start going crazy because you've exhausted them because you were doing it, the talking the wrong way. Whatever she said. When I say I called my sister Wanda as soon as I left the parking lot, and she said the same thing I said, that's some buffoonery. And you need to go give this second. We just laughed because it was just so crazy. And I must have had that look on my face because she felt obligated to say, and a lot of people will say, well, how did it all of a sudden start happening or whatever? And I asked her, I says, how long have you been practicing? And she said, since 2008. I says, was there anybody on staff today that's got a little bit more experience? Because I think that there's something else going on. She looked at me, whatever. I'm talking about some speech therapy classes. Are you out of your mind? And every time it happens, this is what happens. This eye starts to water. Now, I happen to know that when the right eye is watering, that's the liver detoxifying itself. And so I told her all this. She says, and Dr. Downs, I know that you're very in tune with your body, but I think if we just give it a try, and then the speech therapy classes happen to be this little organization her and some of her colleagues have put together. Really? I said I need to get I sent a message to my primary care. It says, you need to give me a second opinion immediately. So I'm going to put these nuts in here. I'm going to put these nuts in here. And then me and my sister did say, wouldn't it be something if you did go through that in that result? Well, we don't think so. I'm going to put these in here, the nuts and the dates, with just a little bit of steel cut oats. Then we're going to have to see if that will even turn. This is pretty easy. Okay. All you want to do is to get it to stick together enough to be able to create a very thin base. What I don't want to do is put too much. I think I'm going to put a little honey in the bottom, because you want it to get to the point where just a little bit here, because we're not doing a whole lot. So raw honey, the Bible says, taste and see, sweet as honey. I know a lot of people don't like to ingest honey. They use it for topical purposes, but I think honey is one of the best things. They try to use a tablespoon some kind of way every day. Maybe that's why my throat. Okay, so that has more of the feel that I want, where you want it to be just a little sticky. Typically, a few extra dates will do that, but since I'm working with just a small area here and I don't want to be wasteful, this is what it looks like. And we're just going to create, remember I said we're going to do one with a little bottom crust and the other without. So I just want to get a little in here to be able to do that. See how simple this is? So we're just mashing it in. It's just like the cheesecake. So you know the cheesecake is all about the cheesecake, the filling. So you never see a cheesecake that has like a thick crust. It's usually paper thin, about the height of a dime. And so that's kind of what you want to create here. Now we have lots of berries, and they're going to be on the loose side, so a little bit of depth is going to be okay. But see how easy this is to do? Just imagine. This is, if you get to a point where we start to just consume smaller portions, this would be like the perfect one-person treat. And it was so filling. We just had so much good food. Oh, Jesus. All right. And then you just press it in. Now, normally, see how it is. That's what your top would look like. I mean the bottom. So see how that's just the right size. See how easy that was? You put it in, then you just press up. Now, normally I would stick this in the freezer for just a couple of minutes to get it stiff. But because this is such a small thing and the filling is not going to be like very liquidated or anything, it's going to be cool. So that's that. This one does not have a bottom. What I forgot to do, again, I did that a couple weeks ago with the other pie, was to sprinkle some grounded flax seeds in the mixture. So I'm just going to add a layer between the crust and the berries. And then I'll put some in the top filling of this grounded sesame seeds. So just enough. It's got little or no taste to it, but a tablespoon or two of grounded flax seeds will keep you well. I know 3 people in the last month or 2 that have been diagnosed with bladder cancer. And in both cases, they went through the therapy, and they were good for about 6 months, and then came back with a vengeance. Very aggressive, very fast. It's not looking good for any of them. So I'm wondering if that's a result of something else, because that's a big coincidence that many people in such a small population would be getting the same. Bladder cancer is not that common. So we're going to put a little bit of each. Just a tad bit of the sea salt, more of the cinnamon, a little bit of nutmeg, tad bit of the turmeric. So we have the seeds and we have the steel cut oats. Nope, we didn't put the steel cut oats in. And this is just simple. I think that it may seem like I'm taking a little longer than normal. I just kind of want to make this be good. I'm going to also put the coconut in the topping versus mixing it with the berries, because the berries are sweet enough. So put that in there, and we're only going to blend this till it just starts to move a little bit. Get a little stiffness to it, like a crumble. Do you know when you have the little dump cake? It's just so good. Especially the one with green apples, walnuts, raisins. I usually just blend that up, chop it up where it's big chunks. And then dump it into a bowl and put some of this topping on it. So this topping, pay attention, a little bit of grinded sesame seeds, grinded steel cut oats, tad bit of, did I put the flax seeds in there? A little bit of flax seeds, grounded flax seeds, maybe a lot. That's gonna always, when it gets a little wet, it'll start to. So that's what we're gonna start with, and I'm gonna see how. And okay, a little bit of maple syrup, just a little bit. All right, I have to work with it to see how baked up. With the grind button and the chop button, so you can reverse it in one direction, and then it starts to do what you want it to do. You take a look. This thing is wonderful. Just large enough and small enough at the same time. Okay. So that's just, that tastes pretty good. Now what we're going to do is just sit this over on the side. That is what? The topping. But we're not to the top yet. We've got to put the filling in. So I'm going to set this over to the side. Now we're just going to come. Now we're going to come and put these berries in here. And you can do just one flavor or just one berry. Or you can do like I'm doing and combine them. This last date. You can never have too many dates when you're doing a filling thing. But like I said, the berries are sweet enough by themselves. We're going to put some more of the maple syrup in there. Just a little bit. Okay, I think I'm actually, I said I wasn't. We're going to put a little bit of the coconut. A tablespoon of raw coconut is also good for you every day. It's got a ton of properties. We may as well put some flax seeds on the inside. Great. So we're going to give this a wig. Oh, you didn't tell me. So the citrus bliss. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 drops, maybe to a dozen. So you want it to be frozen when you start out, but by the time that you get to this point where you're blending it, it's got some frozen berries in there, but for the most part, they're beginning to thaw out. Then that way you don't have a liquid mess, but you got just enough. This looks wonderful. It looks wonderful. It smells wonderful. Since we've already started to thaw out the berries, we're going to use as many of these as we can, and we can just put them in anything. All right, I'm almost done. I really should have gotten you guys some of this, the ingredients early, so that you could make this on your own, because this thing here, I already know without tasting it, it's just going to be fabulous. Because I had some last week. No, I mean, just, and this was as large as the little, I forget what they call these tikis. They were. And we were like savoring every bite. It was just enough. Why? Because it was fresh fruit, and fresh fruit has so many minerals and vitamins in it, and once you get nutrient-dense food, you don't need a whole big boatload. How cute is that? And I forgot that we're going to put the topping on it, so I'm just really getting over the ledge here. And so you just put a little of this on top. And then what we're going to do is you can eat it just like this. Remember, I make the chocolate sauce that has maple syrup, olive oil, and carrot powder. And it tastes just like chocolate sauce that you would put on a banana split. And you could put a little of that on there, but I personally, when I came home, I forgot to put my bananas away, and they were like a little more than ripe, because it was obviously not too warm while I was gone. And so I immediately peeled them and put them into a plastic bag and put them in the freezer, because I knew I was going to make this. And then I will take the ice cream maker and put the frozen thawed bananas in there and put a wallop on there, and that is going to be some kind of yummy. Isn't it nice to be excited about good food? So that's what we have. Can you see how beautiful that is? It's so cute. And so I should have done one ahead of time so that you can see. I'll send you pictures for next week. So I'm going to put that one there. This one doesn't have a bottom. And none of the ones that we had bottoms. They just were fruit filled with a nice little topping. So we're just going to mimic that. This is going to be just as delicious. Now, say on this one, that would probably be where you really would want to put the little water. Or you can just do a scoop of either non-dairy or not yogurt. You know, they've got all the cashew yogurts now and in different flavors. Blueberry, I have some of that actually from Trader Joe's. It's called cashew something. And it's over where the yogurt is sold. It's made out of cashews instead of milk. And they have blueberry. I got blueberry. And so we're going to put some topping. So you could even have it just like that. Just plain blueberries if you want. But that's boring. Oh, that's so good. Oh, that's so good. That is so good. I'm going to call my friend, my new friend, Sarah Timon Billinger. She lives in Maine on the water. And tell her that I just made me a blueberry dish. So we'll put a little more topping on the one that's just blueberries. So these are going to have to stiffen up a little bit. Just a little bit, not much. So I'll put them, cover them with saran wrap, and put it into the freezer for just a moment to stiffen it, and then let it sit and become room temperature. Okay, so now, last thing. So we have this stuff left. You don't want to be putting stuff away. So here's a trick. So instead of having those 3 layers, that is so good. I'm going to do a cooking show, like a real cooking show. I'm going to find me a sponsor. I'm going to do that too. Because I'm telling you, I had a ball eating some good food last week. So I'm going to take all of the ingredients, especially these nuts, and put them in here with the berries and everything I have left. And then I'm going to make a cake loaf with that. Put some of the sesame seeds and put a little bit. I don't know if I want to put too much of the steel cut oats in here, but we will. We'll see what happens. Put a little bit of the maple syrup to grind it. I probably should have used the honey for this one. Okay. A little bit of cinnamon. Man, that blueberry is bumping. Woo, woo. This is what you call not being wasteful at all. My hands are sticky from that topping. So I have one more tiki left, but I think since that's a bit of mixture, we'll use a little loafy. And then these, the same thing, put them in the freezer, then you plop, 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 and then they'll sit up nice so that you can like slightly slice it if you want to have, say, dessert for two. And that's it. We're going to be done because we have nothing left. See how this is a little thicker? Because I put everything that's in here mixed all together, except the topping. I have a little bit, tablespoon of the topping left. So I'm going to just fill this. Just to be on the safe side, I'm going to put a tad bit of oil, olive oil, just so that it plops out nicely. And olive oil is good for your heart. And then just cover the jar, pour this in. I think this has been fun today. How about you? Fun stuff? Fun stuff. Fun stuff whenever you can make some good food, man. And I needed to lose 15 pounds before I left. I was like, man, I'm going to have to wear something else home on the plane. But I actually did okay. I did okay. This has been a year. And I say a year because it started, someone brought this to my attention on yesterday. They called and asked how my father was doing. And said, wow, it's been a year. And I was like, what are you talking about? Has it been a year? We just went through this stuff. And it was, because I was in Orlando last October the 3rd. And that's when I got a call that he woke up and didn't have any feeling in his foot. And so, it has been a year. He had his leg amputated in January the 1st. And so, from October, when I was trying to prevent that for 6-8 weeks, that is when it started. And it seems like it's only been 6 months or so, but it's actually been a year. And so I was just like really surprised at that. I was like, that's really good. He's doing so well now. I get his license renewed. He's such a trooper. Then we take the rest of this topping and we sit it atop here. And this one, since it's a loaf, I'm going to be sure to take some pictures and stuff. I would go as far as to probably chop up some walnuts into really small pieces, mix them with some fresh berries, put maybe a little bit of, probably not anything. You can put a powdering of this on there, like a powder, because it's everything beneath it is so sweet, and then it just kind of has that look. Still cut oats, and of course you get the benefits from the nutrients in it as well. And so that's what the little thingy looks like. And so probably wouldn't want to flip it because then everything would be upside down and then all the berries and stuff will fall. But I would top this with fresh berries and some nuts. Maybe not the nuts, but at least some fresh berries. And that was going to be yummy. So we have 3 wonderful little dishes. I'm going to move all of this out of the way so that you can see what we've done here. So here's our little one with no bottom. Here's our little cakey thing, loaf-like. I really could have done this after I got off the air, but may as well while I have you here. that I'm trying to clean up a bit. Take a nice little picture for you. So why not put them on here like that? So we have 3 yummies. This is going to be my favorite one that has a little bottom crust, the top crust. And that was all done in less than 30 minutes, maybe 15 or so, right? Isn't that wonderful? Good feet. 4 sensible people with this. So that's going to be what I have to look forward to this evening after I get these taxes finished. Okay. So Jesus was a very considerate person, always thinking about the other person. And we don't see immediately. It's a gradual process. Be patient. But with everything else that we talked about too, watch your environments. Try to surround yourself with people that are on the same page. It's very uplifting and just an amazing feeling that you get from that. Just try to just keep walking with God. Spend time with Him, reading His Word. Start trusting and believing. Trusting and believing. And it's not going to be easy. Life's not going to be easy. But we'll get through everything. And always call on your friends. When you need a little encouragement, you need whatever, call on them and you'll start recognizing who you can call on a regular basis or who you can call in time of need. And then let that be, helpful to you. Okay, this has been fun. It's good to be home. I am going to, before Saturday, post some of these incredible pictures of some of the beautiful churches. My background is architecture and the flying buttresses in some of these churches. These churches were 1785 built. There were a couple of places on Sunday, actually did a little sightseeing, and there were 3 churches I went into where one was rehearsing for service, another free concert. And the people were just so nice and coming in and asking questions. Who are you? Where are you from? So it's all good. It was just wonderful, but I have some pictures that are just awesome of some of the churches. Just some really good stuff. And so I'll share some of those. And I have pictures from other stuff that I did. The U.S. Open, I didn't post those yet, so we'll see. Maybe I'll do a photo dump pretty soon. I hope this has been good. I will be back in 2 weeks. We are a week behind again, but 2 weeks I'll be back and we'll get back on track. Have a wonderful day. If you need any information, just write it in the thing, because I always review this much later, and then I will respond.